Ultraflex Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Sutton. With me are my friends, Ryan Wheeler
Hey, hey.
and Rob Green.
How's it going?
Episode 101. Gentlemen, I'm excited. Ryan, what are you most looking forward to with this podcast?
Looking forward to talking some football with my buddies and hoping that if anyone takes our advice, that we help them win some championships, maybe even some money.
Awesome. Rob, what about you?
I am looking forward to talking some fantasy, talking some football, talking whatever else comes up, having some fun, and hopefully sharing some knowledge and gaining some knowledge. Let's do it.
That's my favorite F word, fun. That's what we're here for. Let's have some fun. We've been friends now for 20 years, and we've been playing fantasy football for probably 10 or 12 years of that. And we started playing fantasy when it was non-PPR, one quarterback, two receiver, three tight end, one quarterback, two running back, three receivers, one tight end, and then defense and a kicker. And over the last few years, that's seen a lot of changes to super flex leagues, PPR, tight end premium. And we have enjoyed together playing the leagues that involve the most flex positions. So the name of our podcast, Ultraflex Fantasy, is not just saying that Ryan is going to flex into the camera the entire time.
Should I flex?
That is saying that our league is full of flex positions. So our standard team is going to be one quarterback, 8 flex positions, which is going to be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. So it's positionless. And then we also have one super flex. So majority of the teams in our league will be starting 2 quarterbacks and then a mix of 8 players. It could be 8 running backs, could be 8 receivers, could be 8 tight ends. And we also have a 1.5 tight end premium. So that gives the tight ends a little bit extra value. So Ryan, is there anything else you want to add on the Ultra Flex format that we have?
I mean, I just like the freedom, man. I like the freedom of being able to take 8 wide receivers if that's what you want to start. I mean, you could draft a whole team of wide receivers. Obviously, you're going to want a couple quarterbacks because it's a super flex that we're talking, but and maybe those high end tight ends, but wide receivers, you could draft a whole team of them. If you want to go win now, you might want to pick up some a heavy running back team because the running backs will fall in this format because they don't have the positional scarcity as a normal fantasy draft does. But yeah, I just love the freedom.
Rob, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think the word positionless is the key here, right? You don't have to feel boxed into drafting a running back at a position in the draft that you're not comfortable taking the guy, but you feel forced so that you don't miss out on a run or whatever it may be. This format's going to give you the freedom to build your team the way that you want to and the way that you feel good about. That's huge to me, to be happy about every pick you make. That's tough in a draft, right? Where
I love it.
Where you got to fill certain positions and you know a run's coming. You might make a pick that you regret later, but you made it because you were nervous you're going to miss out at the position. So you don't have to worry about this with this format. It's positionless.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about our format earlier today, actually, and the best way I was able to describe it is it makes the most important positions and the most important players in football also be the most important in fantasy. Like before, when fantasy first started and there was no PPR, the league essentially came down to who had the best running back because all the quarterbacks were going to score about the same amount of points. Since it was non-PPR, the same thing with receivers. But now getting a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes is more important than ever, and getting a Kyle Pitts instead of a Dawson Knox or someone that's average is going to have a huge impact in our
That-
league. So
That probably really hurt you to say that too, because you and Rob are both big Bills fans. So for him to throw Dawson Knox under the bus like that,
Yeah, I was surprised he used his name.
no.
I was trying to think of someone that is around the 10, 12 spot, and we'll get to our rankings in a little bit, but that's essentially where he falls for me. So,
But yeah, go Bills.
Go Bill. Before we get to the rankings, we wanted to just talk about what's been happening this offseason. So, I guess the most recent news as far as trade is Baker going to the Panthers. So, Ryan, how do you think that will impact Baker and the Panthers for fantasy?
I think it gives DJ Moore a little bit more excitement for me to be able to pick him up. He has a solid quarterback now. I mean, Baker's nothing special, but I do think he is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold or whoever else they were starting, Cam Newton as of late. Like, give me Baker out of those guys. And Matt Rule now has a chance, it feels like, to not be fired at the end of the season because it was looking pretty grim for him. Having to rely on Sam Darnold as his starting quarterback and still having to go prove that he can win games with that team. Because they do have a pretty good young defense and they have some weapons for him. They have McCaffrey and DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson went poo-poo out last year, but hopefully he can come back a little bit.
He ended the year strong.
Yeah, he did. He did end the year strong. They have Terrace Marshall too. Terrace Marshall.
Yep.
We'll see if he can be anything. He was awful last year.
Disappointing as a rookie, right?
Yeah. But I'm really interested in DJ Moore. I think that's pretty much what effect or what the Baker effect will have on me most.
Rob, what about you?
Yeah, I think the big name here is DJ Moore. I mean, he's already been great in his young career, and that was with very poor QB play. If Baker can even give him average NFL quarterback play, we could see DJ Moore's value skyrocket this year. And I hope we see that because he's a good young talent. Outside of him, maybe we see a second year leap from Terrace Marshall. I wouldn't count on it after his tough rookie season, as we talked about. Robbie Anderson could be a good buy low right now with the Baker news. If someone's down on him, he could have potentially a career year. He hasn't exactly played with great quarterbacks in his career either. So, yeah, we'll see.
What I'm curious, Rob, what do you think DJ Moore's ceiling is?
I think he has the talent to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver.
So he really has some room for growth because I think like average ADP for him for wide receivers in Dynasty is around 12. It's like 12 to 17.
A back end wide receiver 1, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe a high end wide receiver 2 to the common fantasy player out there.
So he's got a lot of room for growth.
I think he has room to go up, and I would say look into buying him now, but maybe wait a little bit. People might be a little excited on the Baker news.
Yeah.
But also with that, anybody who owns him probably is pretty happy with how his career has gone so far.
Yeah.
Despite not reaching his high ceiling, he has been a productive wide receiver.
He's still so young too.
Right, 25. Right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, me included, think that Baker had a big regression last year. But I was just looking at his stats for 2021 versus 2020. He played 3 less games and he only threw for 450 less yards. So you have to imagine if he's healthy for those 3 games, he probably surpasses what he had in 2020. And then he actually ran for 31 less yards and the same amount of touchdowns. So I'm not saying Baker is going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but I do think he's better than anything Carolina had. So as far as DJ Moore, this definitely can't hurt him. And he's obviously at this point in Baker's career, he's a lot better passer than Cam Newton is or was last year. So yeah, I think it can't hurt.
Yeah,
As
Moore's
far as
already
the
produced with worse quarterbacks, so
Yeah.
let's see what he can do.
Hopefully he doesn't OBJ DJ Moore and make him a terrible wide receiver.
just completely ignore him.
Yeah.
As far as the Browns are concerned, how does this trade? We still don't know what's going on with Watson, so we probably won't know for a couple more weeks. But how does this impact some of their receivers, Amari Cooper, the running backs, and then I guess they're going to go ahead and start Jacoby Brissett. So Ryan, how does this impact the Browns?
Jacoby Brissett, man. I mean, it really depends on what happens with Deshaun Watson. We don't want to speculate, but if he's playing this year, they're obviously much better off on the field with him at quarterback than Brissett. The other option was who's their backup besides Brissett? The guy,
Josh Dobbs.
yeah, Dobbs. Also not a great option. So they're really not looking good. Amari should see pretty much a very heavy workload and target share. He's got competition with Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, Kareem Hunt, and the rookie they just got.
Anthony
David
Schwartz.
Bell.
David
Yeah,
Bell.
yeah. I don't know, man. I don't feel good about any of those options. If I had to start one, obviously it'd be Amari Cooper and the running backs, just because I think they have standalone value. But
Have they come out and said if Watson's suspended, that Brissett's for sure the guy? Like, could this be a Jimmy G potential trade place, or no? Because he's going to want to go somewhere long term. Not that he has a say in where he gets traded necessarily, but
yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know what their salary situation looks like. I'm pretty sure it was pretty tight though, because they wanted to get rid of Baker.
right.
Um, and they still have to pay half of his salary that it was due, right? Like 10 million of the
Yeah, they took
yeah.
a chunk of that with the trade.
Yeah, so I don't see Jimmy G ending up there, but I mean
It's just not exciting, right? If Brissett ends up being the guy,
it's not.
it doesn't make you happy about the position players there, whether it's
Absolutely
Cooper,
not. It's going to have to be a year
David
that
Njoku. I mean,
yeah.
maybe it helps Nick Chubb just from a volume standpoint. They really lean on him.
Yeah. It's tough because if they have to wait another year for Watson to come back, and those running backs are going to be 1 year older. Amari Cooper 1 year older. He'll be hitting close to 30 at that point.
I believe Kareem Hunt's contract is up after this season as well.
So then you don't even know if he's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see.
As far as other, not considering the Browns or the Panthers, other offseason news is Hopkins suspension. He's going to be missing 6 games. How does that impact Kyler Murray? How does that impact AJ Green? The rest of the Cardinals offense? Rob, I'll let you go.
I don't think that losing Hopkins has too big of an impact on a guy like Kyler Murray. He's, to me, a proven stud for fantasy. He's going to use his legs. He still has some weapons in the pass game. Hopefully, AJ Green can prove he's not dust at this point for at least 6 games, right? Step into that starting lineup there. They made the big trade for Marquis Brown, who I'm high on. I think he could have a great year, potentially a great few years if they get him signed long term, right?
Yeah.
They still have Zach Ertz. They drafted the rookie Trey McBride. It's still a loaded offense. And yeah,
I'm right there with you, Rob. I mean, I'm excited about Hollywood showing up there.
definitely.
I don't think it's going to affect Kyler much, if at all. I mean, you take Hopkins out, you add Marquise Brown in, and then when Hopkins comes back, it's like now you've got some weapons.
It's like a boost to the offense midseason, right?
Right. I don't see
Yeah.
it hurting him necessarily in any way. I mean, I just think that when Hopkins comes back, that offense is going to be or has the potential to be legit, but they do tend to break apart come second half of the season. So we'll see what happens. But
Yep. They have had some slow second halves recently, but
yeah,
Brian, in any format for the next year or two, Hopkins is probably a top 5 receiver still, obviously, when he's playing. If you are a team that's contending in a PPR league where Hopkins is going to be one of the better players to have for the second half of the season, and say Hopkins is on someone that's struggling, needs to get some picks or some young players, I guess, what would you be willing to trade for a Hopkins coming off of a 6-game suspension?
Is he still worth a late first? Like, I mean, in Dynasty, we're talking, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't like old guys, personally. So I know you said if you're, I know you said, I get it. I get it. You're a contender, so you might want to trade away those future assets to acquire possible previous superstar wide receiver in D Hop. I think I'd be comfortable with giving up like anywhere from a projected late first, 2023 first. Obviously, if
You'd
someone
have
wants
to
to
be
take
all
like,
in, right? To make that
yeah,
move,
yeah.
I think.
If you're going all in, you're going all in. And if you're going all in with that move, you're hoping that you're giving away the 112
And
to
I think
get.
it's a move you probably want to wait until potentially your trade deadline, right? Make sure he stays healthy, comes back, looks good
That's
before you give that pick up.
that's a real good call too, because I mean, you don't want to buy him when you're looking like that other. You kind of wait till the other team looks desperate. Like I really need to get rid of Hopkins because his value is going
Right.
to start going down, and then
Yes.
who knows? Maybe you get him for I don't know if you have a second. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never
And
know.
what do you think with the hype of the 2023 rookie class that's kind of going on right now? That pick could potentially get you somebody better or younger than Hopkins if somebody really is trying to build up their picks for this coming draft.
Right.
Right.
That's very true.
Well, I think that's the fun part, right? If you're a contending team and you're in a big money league and you can win some money this year, it's do you go get a Hopkins or someone else, or do you hang on to your pick for a dynasty? When we're talking dynasty, we're typically looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. So is a chance at winning a championship worth a first round pick, which will have an impact for you for the next 5 years?
Yeah,
To me, it is, assuming, like Ryan said, you're a top team, you really have a chance to win it all this year. That's the goal, right? You want to win, you want to make some money. If you have the team to do it, don't be afraid to spend the pick, I say.
yeah, I agree with that.
The other possible suspension, I guess we're speculating a little bit here, but there's a rumor that Kamara is going to get suspended for potentially 6 games. So obviously he's been a top running back for the last 4 or 5 years now. So how does that possibility impact the Saints offense in general, but specifically the running back position, Ryan?
Gross. I'm not touching any of the running backs coming out of that backfield. We have Mark Ingram and then a couple of guys that no one knows much about. It doesn't mean that I'm shying away from that offense entirely. I actually like Jameis Winston probably more than most, and I have a hot take for everybody coming up at the end of the show. But the running back room, no thank you. He said that he's bracing for at least a 6-game suspension. To me, that sounds like it's going to happen. Like he's going to get 6 or more games. That's what it sounds like. I know it's speculation.
He's accepting that, right?
Right. He's like accepting
okay
it.
with it almost. Yeah.
Yeah. If you say I'm bracing for a 6-game suspension, then when they give you a 6-game suspension, you can't be like, well, I didn't see that coming. You literally
Right.
just said you were bracing for a 6-game suspension at least. So yeah, I mean, Mark Ingram, running backs start hitting a cliff typically when they hit like 27, 28 years old. He's what, 32?
32,
Now?
yeah.
32 years old? No thanks.
It's not a guy you want in Dynasty, right?
No, probably not a guy that I want at all. So Dynasty.
That's a sell, but I mean, everyone's going to be trying to sell him at that point. So I'm not sure he has much value at all.
No. But the wide receivers, I mean, Michael Thomas is kind of a little bit scary. His workout videos still look a little bit sketchy. I don't know, man. Chris Olave, I love Chris Olave. And
Jarvis Landry's there too.
Yep, Jarvis Landry. I think Chris Olave will do really well with Winston, and I think Jarvis will. I mean, tell you what, Olave, Jarvis, and if Michael Thomas comes back, that looks a lot better than what Winston had last year. And Winston actually played pretty good while he was healthy. So
I can give a mini hot take there on the receivers.
oh,
I'd say Chris Olave leads that team in fantasy points from the wide receiver position pretty easily this year. I mean, they targeted him heavily, right? Moving up, giving all those picks up to get to, what was that, top 10 pick, right? Or right around
they gave up a lot for him.
A future first, right? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy that they really wanted on this team.
Yeah.
Their 6-man rotation at wide receiver, they don't have anyone that stands out as I guess a guaranteed wide receiver one, but assuming Michael Thomas is somewhat healthy, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Marquez Callaway, who was good last year, Traquan Smith, and Deontay Harris are both speedsters. So, I mean, as a 6-man rotation, that's pretty good. So a lot of weapons for James.
They have depth. And if Michael Thomas, man, if he can just be a shell of what he was so good. What was it, like 3 years ago last time we saw him? And
Breeze was still playing.
Yeah, it's a little different when you have potentially the best quarterback or one of the top 5 quarterbacks ever.
Yeah, that's true. At the end of his career, though, so I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. Drew Brees, that at the end of his career was definitely not Drew Brees, but
right.
Okay, cool. Well, so that's most of what's happening this offseason. Want to look at your guys' wide receiver and running back rankings. We'll look at the top 15 for each. And just as a reminder, when we're talking about rankings, we're looking at this as dynasty. So we're looking at youth potential to kind of have cornerstones for your team for the next 3 or 4 years. And then trying to see who has that high ceiling versus someone that might be older and kind of already reached their ceiling. So I'll go ahead. I'll start with Rob and name off the top his top 15, and then we'll kind of dissect from there. So Rob has Justin Jefferson 1, Jamar Chase 2, CeeDee Lamb 3, AJ Brown 4, Jalen Waddle 5, T Higgins 6. So we've got 2 Bengals in the top 6. We got Cooper Kupp 7, Stephon Diggs 8, DK Metcalf 9, DJ Moore 10, and then Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman Jr., and Terry McLaurin rounding out the top 15. So, Rob.
Yes.
Looking specifically at 11 through 15. We got some of the older guys there. The top 10 is a lot of 23, 24, 25. So is that kind of your thought process there? And in Dynasty, you can't have too many people above a certain age, or what are you looking for in those 11 through 15 guys?
Yeah, it's kind of the former top wide receivers, right, that are getting up there in age for me. I mean, not that Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill aren't top wide receivers anymore, but most of the guys I have ranked above them are 22, 23, 25, like you said, and that's a big part of it when we're looking a few years into the future here. But Rob, I do have, yes.
I have a question. And I know all the listeners that were listening to these rankings, they were probably like, WTF did I just hear? Deebo Samuel.
Yes.
At 13, folks.
Yeah, I have a hot take for the hot take segments that actually features Deebo. Spoiler alert, Ryan, bringing him up. I'm just a little bit down on him from consensus, maybe a lot down on him from consensus. And I'm just worried about a few things here. the role he might potentially play, losing those carries, he doesn't want to run the ball anymore. He's come out and said that. And on top of that, he's come out and said, trade me, please. And he's stuck by that. And that makes me nervous. How much commitment is there to the 49ers from Debo? And it's enough for me to bump him behind guys like Tyreek and Devontae Adams, who are a few years older.
That makes sense. I just wanted to call you out because there's no way that people that are listening aren't like, huh?
Oh, for sure. Most people are going to look at a list and see Debo potentially top 5, definitely top 10. But
Yeah,
it's, to me, it's just he's a screaming sell, and that's kind of reflected in my rankings.
I agree with that.
Is the Tyreek Hill being 12? How much of that is, again, this is dynasty, so we're looking 3-4 years out. How much is that he's 28 years old, and how much is that he just came from potentially the best quarterback in the league to Tua?
It's a little bit of the unknown with Tua and the new offense, and a big part of it too for me is I'm a big fan of Jalen Waddle. I had him 5 in my rankings. He had 104 catches, I believe, this past season.
Set the rookie record, right?
Right. He already has that established connection with Tua. Are we just going to assume that Tyreek's going to come in and take that from him just because they paid him a lot of money? Like, just because the front office made that move doesn't mean that they're going to click like that. And I don't think you can deny the talent and the chemistry that Jalen Waddle had with Tua.
I agree.
So I still have him as a wide receiver 1 in my rankings because he's a hell of a wide receiver.
Because he's Tyreek Hill, baby.
He's Tyreek Hill. He's got the game-breaking speed that nobody else has.
He's a one-of-one type guy.
He's a one-of-one. So I'm still willing to take him as a wide receiver 1. It's just a few question marks that have crept up that push him towards the back end of the wide receiver 1 rankings that he probably hasn't been ranked there in 5-6 years.
Yeah, long time.
Right? He's been at the top for a long time. So
awesome. My last question before we jump over to Ryan is your 14-15, Michael Pittman Jr., Terry McLaurin, both extremely talented receivers. Yep. Does their quarterback play potentially scare you, or does the fact that in Pittman's case that he has Ryan, is that part of the reason he might even be higher than some people have him?
Yeah, I don't know that it's too much higher than people have him ranked right now. Maybe being above Terry McLaurin's a little much compared to some rankings, but I do think Matt Ryan's a bump. And as far as am I nervous about the quarterback play? Not really. I mean, I think they're both no doubt number 1 wide receivers in their offense. I think they're talented. They've proven it. They have the production. They have the size. I think they're both going to have good seasons. And really, you could probably argue, even though Carson Wentz hasn't been great in recent years, I mean, is this Terry McLaurin's best quarterback to date? Probably is, at least from a talent standpoint, right?
Yeah, so talent-wise and ceiling, definitely. Arm talent and strength. Awesome. But I'm going to switch over to Ryan's top 15, and then we'll go back through years 6 through 10, Rob. So Ryan's top 15 receivers. He has the same top 5, just a little different order. So you got Justin Jefferson 1, Jamar Chase 2, CeeDee Lamb 3, Jalen Waddle 4, AJ Brown 5, Debo Samuel 6, DK Metcalf 7, Cooper Kupp 8, Devontae Adams 9, Tyreek Hill 10, T. Higgins 11, Stephon Diggs 12, DJ Moore 13, Deontay Johnson 14, and Rashad Bateman 15. So we've got some different names here. Ryan, for these 14 and 15, they weren't even in Rob's rankings. So Deontay Johnson and Rashad Bateman, why are you so high on those two?
Deontay Johnson, honestly, like the more I look at it, there's so many more exciting names on the list, and I probably have to move him down. Like the more I'm just sitting here, I'm looking at my list, and he just seems to stick out for me. Um, I would probably have to move him down, but he has been productive. He has been a target hog. It's scary that he's getting um, a new quarterback in. I can't think of either of their names right now. Holy moly!
Who? Trubisky?
Trubisky.
Yeah, Trubisky or the
Kenny
rookie.
Pickett?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett. Like you're moving into a rookie or a guy who's already been traded twice, and it's just I don't know. I guess I should have. I
How
should
much of
probably.
his production was Big Ben's inability to drive
That's
the
what I
ball
was just gonna say.
downfield?
A lot of people say like Big Ben, it can't get worse than that. But the thing is that Big Ben checked down every play. That's why he
Yep.
had so many targets, so many catches. I think Claypool is probably a guy that I'm more excited about. I'm not going to take Claypool over Deontay Johnson, but because he has that big play ability, he's the big outside wide receiver. I mean that's
He's a
exciting.
freak.
He's a freak of nature, and I want freaks of nature on my fantasy football team. But I mean, I am going to be moving Deontay down. Rashad Bateman, the guy is actually he's probably the wide receiver 2 on that team behind uh, Mandrews. I know Mandrews is a tight end, but he's probably going to get the most targets on that team. But I just feel like Bateman has a real chance to break out this year, and if he does break out, he could go to the moon. And having him at 15 doesn't seem like that's his ceiling. So I'd be okay with taking him there.
The Ravens wide receiver core is just so terrible.
It's
Not good.
Devin Duvernay is your number 2. You got Taylon Wallace, Jalen Moore.
You can stop there. It doesn't matter. Like,
Ben Victor, Slade Bolden. Like,
who?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, he has every opportunity or should get every opportunity to catch 100-plus balls and get every target in the red zone that doesn't go to Mark Andrews. So,
Yeah.
I guess before we go back to Rob, T. Higgins for you is in at number 11. Rob has him at number 6. So, why do you have him outside of your top 10 when he's 23 years old, coming off of a good season and seems to have that chemistry with Burrow?
It's a great question. He has the on my rankings and our consensus number 2 wide receiver in Dynasty across the field from him. It's really hard for me to put both of those guys in my top 10, and that's pretty much why I couldn't do it. I don't think it's crazy to have T. Higgins at where I have him. If you look at like other websites, he's usually ranked around wide receiver 10, other rankings. So
Yeah, I think I'm higher on him.
yeah, Rob's pretty high. I think that he just really likes Burrow, and he he's hoping that Higgins, if he hits his ceiling, if Higgins hits his ceiling, he is a wide receiver, a top 4 dynasty wide receiver because he's so young. He has the quarterback. He's not going to always get double covered because Jamar Chase is going to take a lot of attention away. Like, I'm not saying T. Higgins is a bad player. I just have a hard time ranking him above the guys that Rob was able to move down.
Yeah, I'll explain why I have him there.
Yeah.
A little bit more once we get to the top.
Like I have Debo at 6, and I don't feel great about it for the exact reasons that Rob stated. The fact that he's probably going to have Trey Lance as his quarterback. We don't know what that's going to mean. He doesn't want to run the ball. He doesn't even want to be a 49er. So having him at 6 is me basically just hoping that the guy can keep producing in somewhat close, that like in somewhat of a vicinity that he was last year. He was always good, I mean, he wasn't top 5 dynasty good, but he was when he was healthy. He was always a baller.
Rob, why jumping back to your rankings? I guess looking at your 6 through 10 again, you have T Higgins 6, Cooper Kupp 7, coming off the greatest wide receiver season ever. Stephon Diggs 8, DK Metcalf with potentially the worst quarterback situation in the league, and then DJ Moore at 10. So I guess why are you so high on T Higgins?
So I just want to start and say the only reason DK Metcalf isn't in my top 7 there ahead of Cooper Kupp, there's kind of a line there if you look at my rankings at 6 from T Higgins to Cooper Kupp. So Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, T Higgins. To me, those are the elite young wide receivers that I think have wide receiver 1 overall talent.
For the next 5 years.
Yeah, for the next 5 years, right? Those are the guys that I'd be willing to take over the, you could maybe say, I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but the guaranteed production of Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, guys like that for the next 2 to 3 years. Those young guys are the ones I'm willing to take the chance on over the production year 1 for my fantasy team. And as I was saying, the only reason I don't have DK in that tier is because of the quarterback situation, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look good. There was some rumors recently, maybe they try to get Jimmy Garoppolo, and that would be great. That could be a bump for DK up into that tier for me if that happens. But right now you're looking at Drew Lock or Geno Smith. So that's why I have him at 9 behind Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs, but I could see him creeping back up into that top 5 range.
I think it really shows what you think of Locke and Geno Smith when you say, like, if he gets Jimmy G.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's not an exciting quarterback either, right? But he's a league average quarterback, and that would be obviously a downgrade from Russell Wilson that he's had the last few years, but it'd still be big. So to answer your original question, also with Higgins and Chase, I do like Burrow, and I think he can support 2 top 10 wide receivers.
Right.
So that's why I have them both there.
Ryan,
also, if anything happens to Chase, I mean, Higgins, is it completely outside of the realm of possibility that Higgins ends up being Burrow's number 1 and Chase is the field stretcher? It's probably not going to happen because Chase is great, but it could be that, hey, maybe Burrow decides Higgins is this guy.
Or maybe teams start double covering Chase and Higgins is now the wide open guy every play.
I think they will both be great, and that's a big reason I have them both ranked there.
Ryan, you guys both have similar guys in that range. So I guess my question now, similar to Hopkins earlier, if you are a middle of the pack team or lower team, are you trading a Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams halfway through the year? And if you are, what are you asking for?
For a Cooper Kupp or a Devontae Adams? I mean, I'm definitely expecting a 23 first, maybe a 23 first and second. Like, I'm not giving up either of those guys for less than that. And I'm hoping that that's an early first. So I mean, I understand that they're older, but they're also, you can't really say that Cooper Kupp's like a generational guy because he's had really one fantastic year. He had another one a couple of years ago, but the guy just showed what he's capable of, and it's next level.
Nobody who has him's trading him for 1 first. Like, I just don't see that.
No chance. That's what I'm saying. Like,
unless someone's trading like the guaranteed 101 next year.
Right.
But why would somebody do that? Because then they're not a contender, right? I mean, I guess it's possible the contending team does have the 101
that would be something that you probably have to trade players for because the picks don't line up. Like if you're a contender trying to buy a Cooper Kupp, you're going to be sending away a late first for him.
I think what the kind of trade you'd probably need to look at is, okay, I'm going to tier down to maybe you can get Michael Pittman plus a first, like a
Right.
trade like that, or one of the rookies from last year plus a first, something like that. Rashad Bateman could be another one.
I could tell you right now, if I was a contender, I would definitely. I mean, if I was selling Cooper Kupp, I would definitely take Pittman in a first or Rashad Bateman in a first for Kupp.
And that's not a trade you're going to probably get done right now because
Right.
people are really high on Pittman. People are really high on Rashad Bateman and those young guys. And obviously they like their first right now, but come the middle of the season when people are chasing that championship
Yeah.
and they smell the money, right? It's getting close.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp could look awfully good if he's wide receiver 1 again, and you might get a haul for him if you're a team that's middle of the pack, or especially if you're, bottom 5.
For sure.
Ryan, I'm just curious.
That'd be the time to move him.
Ryan, I'm just curious. You got Devontae Adams at 9. If he was still in Green Bay and was playing with Aaron Rodgers, would that affect your ranking at all?
That's a good question. I don't. I really. No problem, man. I really don't think so. I mean, it's really hard to put him up above those guys. Like Rob said, he has that top tier, that first tier, which is the young guys who you can have on your team for the next 10 years, possibly. Like literally, you're looking 5 years into the future with those guys. With a Devontae Adams, he's 29 years old. I don't know that I would be able to put him above Kupp if he was with Rodgers, seeing what Kupp is capable of. And I have already guys like Metcalf in front of him because I think that they are. I agree with Rob that he's got a terrible quarterback situation, but.
So on Adams, then, if you don't think that losing Rodgers affects his ranking, don't you think you're a little high on him then? I mean, going from Rodgers to Carr has to move him down somewhat, especially from he had so many monster seasons recently. Do you expect him to replicate that?
What do you mean? He said that Derek Carr is just as good as Rod. I mean, sure. I don't know, man. We're really splitting hairs here. If I was going to drop him, I don't feel comfortable dropping him below a Tyreek Hill because he's also got a new quarterback. I could probably move T. Higgins up over those guys because Derek Carr is the quarterback over Rodgers. But man,
I just struggle, especially with you and your ageism or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Are you really taking Adams in a startup over T. Higgins?
It depends on the situation.
Okay.
If I'm trying to win now, then yes.
It's going to be an early pick, so you're really not going to know that would be the fork in the road, right? I'm taking Adams. I'm winning.
If I'm taking Adams, I'm also taking a running back the next round, probably.
Right.
If I'm taking Higgins, I'm probably stacking some young wide receivers to go along with my top tier quarterback.
Yeah.
Speaking of running backs, we got to get to the running backs. So let's very quickly go through the top 5 receivers. They're the same top 5. It's just you guys just have them slightly different order. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, and A.J. Brown. Is there, for you, Rob, is there a tier there where you would put 1 or 2 or 3 above the other, or are they kind of all the same?
Yeah, it's a tier at the top and it's small. It's Justin Jefferson and it's Jamar Chase, and I really struggled separating the two. I almost wanted to go for the year younger Jamar Chase, but we've seen Justin Jefferson do it twice and he's been great. Give me Justin Jefferson, but yeah, I got those two in a tier together at the top.
What about you, Ryan?
Same exact. I'm going to say the same exact thing. I think it's Jefferson, I think it's Chase, and then it's everybody else. They're in a tier of their own, and they're so special.
Yeah, I think for the next, like we talked about before, for the next 5 or 10 years, if you can get any of those 5 on your team, you've got your wide receiver 1 for a decade, and then you can kind of just build off of that. So
yeah,
for sure.
Let's jump over to running backs here. So I'll start with you, Rob. I'm going to start at the top this time and work my way down to number 15. So
Okay.
your top 5 are Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, and Breece Hall. So there hasn't been back-to-back number 1 performances from a from a running back in a very long time, since Jamal Charles?
Been over 10 years, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the reason behind why you have him number 1 and why everyone has him number 1 is obvious. But do you think it is realistic for him to finish there and pull the back-to-back?
It's definitely within the realm of possibilities. Obviously, the stats don't back it up to say he's going to repeat. But who are you taking? Who gives you the better chance at it? You're just guessing at that point. It's Taylor versus the field to me. So he's the clear 101 at running back for me, because I think he has the best chance to be that guy, the first guy to repeat in over 10 years.
Yeah.
And again, these rankings, I should have said before, are dynasty. So we're looking 3, 4, 5 years out. So some of the other people that you would rank high for a 1 year, your Christian McCaffreys or Austin Eckler or Dalvin Cook, because they're already old for a running back. I mean, they're 26, 27, years old. So that is getting up there in age. Who are you looking for out of those 3, 4 position there? Excuse me. DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams. Who are you looking for to have the bigger jump from last year?
It's Swift for me. I think that Detroit Lions team is ready to make a jump. Hopefully Goff is up to the task. They have a great offensive line. They built up that very well in recent years. They just added the speedster, right, and Jameson Williams. That's really going to open up that passing game to hopefully give DeAndre Swift more room to run and more room to catch balls, because he caught a lot last year. I think he could catch even more this year. And Javonte Williams still has to deal with Melvin Gordon. Last year we saw, right, it was a 50-50 split. I don't think that'll happen again. They signed him late in the offseason for pretty low money. I think it was a 1 year, $2 million deal, something along those lines. But it gives me enough pause to lower him below Swift, where I think some people might still like Williams better. He may be the more talented natural runner of the football than Swift, but I like Swift's situation better for this year and probably long term still.
How weird does it feel to say that the Lions have a good team? Like,
I don't know if they have a good team yet, but they're building something that they haven't been able to do in a long time. They're in the right direction to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of it.
I think for the longest time, you wouldn't say that the Lions had a plan. Looks like they had a plan.
They were drafting wide receivers every year in the first round, right?
Speaking of being high on Swift, Ryan, your top 5 is Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Christian McCaffrey, who's a new name for the top 5, and then Najee Harris. So anything you want to add to Rob's point on either Swift or Williams?
It's a ceiling thing. I mean, Swift, if he hits his ceiling, he could be one of the legitimate. I think he has one of the legitimate cases to be the RB1. Yes. Very hard for me to say the same thing about a lot of these guys. I think that it's Swift and Williams for me. Rob, you had at the 2 and 3. Rob, you had Najee up there.
Yeah, Najee's a pure volume play.
Yeah.
The guy, I don't know if there's anybody else in the league that's as safe for 300 touches for the next 3 years as this guy is. I mean, Najee Harris is going to touch the ball a lot, and he might not catch as many passes, but he's about as safe as you could get at the position.
And the thing about like running back is that we know that running backs get hurt. We don't bake injury projections into our rankings, but with the more touches you get, the more opportunities you have to get injured.
Certainly.
Najee is a little scary in that sense for me. Christian McCaffrey, he's had the last 2 years off, basically. He's hurt you if you had him in your fantasy leagues. I'm not saying that makes him 24 again because those 2 years still matter. He's 26 now, but I do think that he has enough of a ceiling higher than Najee for me to put him above Najee.
Yeah. Does anybody have McCaffrey ceiling?
No,
I don't think so.
no,
that's
I
what
think McCaffrey is definitely the 101 RB if we're talking about ceiling. I think he's in a league of his own.
Yeah.
You guys both have, so jumping up to 6 through 10 here for you, Ryan. Rob had him in his top 5, but Brees Hall is at 6, Joe Mixon 7 for you, Ryan. Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, and J.K. Dobbins rounding out your top 10. And again, just to reiterate, this is for Dynasty, looking 3-4 years out. So that's why you haven't even, in your rankings, Ryan, we haven't even mentioned someone like a Nick Chubb or a Derrick Henry yet. But there's been a lot of running backs that have come into the league and had a lot of success at a young age. What do you think Brees Hall's ceiling will be this year?
Oh man, this year specifically, like in Dynasty, I think he has higher value than season long right now. That's why I have him at 6. This year specifically, I could see him being a top 10 running back if he gets the workload, which I think he will, as long as he can stay healthy and if Wilson can take a step forward and that offense can roll the way that they're hoping it will. And it looks pretty good, man. I'm excited to see what Zach Wilson can do, but
That Jets offense looks good on paper.
it kind of reminds me of the Lions. Like their offense looks good on paper.
Yeah.
Their offensive line is ginormous. Now, whether that turns into production on the offensive line, we'll see. But
Yeah,
Got some run blockers up there, hopefully, for Brees, right?
yeah. I think it's important for me to say that, like, if I was doing a startup dynasty, I have guys like Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, um, J.K. Dobbins at my 7, 8, 9, 10. I probably won't be taking those guys. I have them ranked high, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily want to draft them. I just think that if I were to go with a win now team, I would have to take those guys over guys like Cam Akers and Saquon, and because I just feel better about their short term production and value than I do about those other guys after them.
Because in our Ultraflex format, if you do find yourself taking the running backs, you're not going to be scared off by the age, right?
Right.
Because if you're taking running backs, you're probably trying to win now.
Yeah, if
So
you're
just take
buying, that's what I'm
guys
saying.
that
If
are going
you're
to do good this year.
if you're buying those guys, you're hoping you're winning because they're going to give you 1, 2, maybe, I mean, probably 2 years more of high productivity. So
Derrick Henry still has about 12 years left to play, right? Until he's 40.
yeah,
I think a lot of it comes down to, and we'll talk about it once we get to some mock drafts, but a lot of it comes down to who you've gotten in the previous rounds, because we'll talk about it again, but QBs are going to go first. But if you can get your hands on maybe like a Kyler Murray and DK Metcalf and your team is relatively young, then it might not be that bad of an idea to come around and get a Dalvin Cook to kind of offset that and try to win now. So I think it all comes down to strategy, and we'll talk about that when we get to the mock drafts. But
yeah.
Rob, your 6 through 10, you've got McCaffrey, who we've already talked about, Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, and Saquon Barkley. So you got probably what, if you just started playing fantasy 2 years ago, these are the people that got you paid. So
Yeah.
I guess, what are your thoughts on putting them in kind of the tier 2 status?
These are the guys who've been productive for a few years. They've been your typical RB1s, but they're getting up there in age. Kind of like we just talked about, if I find myself going for it right away, some of these guys are going to jump ahead of Brees Hall, Javonte Williams, because their outlooks are better for this coming season. They're all 25 or older. And even if you want to go to my number 11, just because I see it right in front of me, Alvin Kamara, same, he's 27. These are win now running backs that I think are as safe as a running back can be to have production for this coming season. Maybe there's one guy in there, Barkley, who's a little bit more of a projection because we haven't seen him really play much in the last few years. But I'm excited to see the new offense there. So
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that the rankings are like a fluid system. It's just because you have certain guys ranked above others, it doesn't mean that that's exactly where the way you should draft them in that order. It's going to depend on your team makeup. It's going to depend on who you took before them. Like, if you're going for a win now, you have to move these older guys up above the younger guys, unless you're not ready to fully commit, I guess. But
and we're gonna have some win now rankings eventually.
yeah,
To kind of illustrate that difference between a team that's going for it versus a team that's rebuilding, right?
yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool actually if we did a mock draft. If one of us said, "All right, I'll bite the bullet. I'm not going to draft the fun young guys. I'm going to make a win now team, and let's
The
see what it
super
ends up looking
team.
like."
Yeah.
I'm gonna read off both of your 11 through 15. That way we have them. And then we'll post these rankings on our Twitter, which is at ultra_flex FFP. That way everyone can see that. And then I'm going to ask you guys where you would expect to see the first running back or running backs to get drafted. But let me just finish it off. So, Rob, you have in your 11 through 15, you've got Alvin Kamara, like you just said, Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, and then Kenneth Walker at 15. And then Ryan, you have Cam Akers, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, and Nick Chubb as your 15th. But I know kind of looking ahead here, but where would you see a Jonathan Taylor or a DeAndre Swift getting drafted in an Ultraflex league, Rob?
It's going to depend on who's in your league, right? Everybody's different. Everyone has their different strategies. Some people absolutely love running backs. And especially if you love running backs, how can you not love Jonathan Taylor after his first 2 seasons? I would be surprised even in this format. And even though it's a super flex with the quarterbacks, I don't think he makes it out of round 1.
I
And
agree
even
with
if
that.
he does, I could see him being like the turn pick, right? Let's say it's a 12-man league. He could be the 13th pick. I think just because of his ability, someone would take him before, the 8th, 9th QB.
He's kind of the guy that doesn't. He's the 101 of the RBs for me. I know I said that Mccaffery. If we were talking about pure potential for like next year, does Mccaffery have the highest ceiling? And I think the answer is yes. But if you're looking at next year potential and then also 3 years into the future, Jonathan Taylor has to be the only name that you're really looking at, unless you're a Lions fan. You might think Swift can get up there, but I just don't know that he has that guaranteed workload like Jonathan Taylor will.
Maybe Brees Hall.
Maybe Brees Hall, yeah. But yeah, I don't think that Jonathan Taylor's making it out of the first either. I think that once those 2 top wide receivers go, and Kyle Pitts probably, Jefferson, Chase, Kyle Pitts, I think Jonathan Taylor is the next one to go.
I think you could see 8 quarterbacks, those 2 wide receivers, Kyle Pitts and Jonathan Taylor, be around 1.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to do some mock drafts in the next coming weeks. We're kind of getting to draft season there for startup weeks. So, like I said, we'll post all of these rankings again on our Twitter, which is at ultra_flex FFP. But we're gonna head wrap up this episode, and we'll wrap it up with hot takes. So, Ryan, what is your hot take of the week?
All right, guys. I mentioned this towards the beginning of the podcast. I said I have faith in Jameis Winston this year. This year, I have faith. I'm not talking about dynasty. I'm not saying put him as a top 12 dynasty QB, but I am saying I think he will finish as a QB1 this coming season. Not the QB1, a QB1 is a big difference. So I think he'll finish in the top 12. Just looking at his, the last time he played a full season, I know it was a different team, and I know it was the Bucks, and they were just airing it out every play. But he threw for over 300 yards in 11 out of his 16 games. He had 30 interceptions, which is awful. 33 touchdowns and over 5,100 passing yards. All right, this guy looked legit, and then they got rid of him. But there was 30 interceptions in there, and that's the reason why. But if we look at last year, he only played in six. I mean, played in seven, but he got hurt the seventh game, so I just took that game and didn't count it towards his stats. So he only played in about 6 games. He averaged about 185 passing yards per game, which is really bad. And I feel like he can only go up from there. He averaged over 2 touchdowns per game and only 3 total interceptions for those 6 games. Okay, so from 30 picks to 3, which is that matters in fantasy because you get knocked for throwing picks. He also had almost 5 carries per game and 20 rushing yards per game, which actually also matters when you extrapolate those numbers to a full 17-game season, which I have done for you guys. So if you take those stats and you look at what it would have looked like if he kept performing like that throughout the whole season, we're looking at 3,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 9 interceptions total. Big difference from 30 to 9. 77 rushes for 325 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, because he did score 1 rushing touchdown in those first 6 games. So if you take those numbers and you look at where that would have ranked last year, he would have finished as the QB12 just behind Kyler and Cousins. So I think that, like I said, I think there's only positive progression coming, positive regression, if you say that, coming with his passing yards. 185 yards per game is disgusting. I don't think there's any way he throws that. He had nobody last year, guys. He was throwing to Marcus Callaway and Deontay Hardy, or is that his name anymore? He has it was Deontay Hardy, and then it switched to
Deontay Harris.
Deontay Harris, or maybe the other way around.
Harris, I think I think it's switched.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at the average points per game, he was 14th last year. So I think, yeah, like you said, and are saying if he can do that for an entire season, then he'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, and he's being drafted around like QB 20, somewhere around there right now. So I think that's why it qualifies as a hot take. If I have to justify that, I don't think I have to, but.
So we got Jameis coming in as a top 12 quarterback. Rob, what do you have, my friend?
I'll go for a little bit more of a negative hot take, I guess. I'm going to say Deebo Samuel will finish outside of the top 20 wide receivers this season. I kind of brought this up earlier already with my ranking of him at wide receiver 13. I'm not going to fully commit and put him outside my top 20 wide receivers, but this is a hot take segment. So we already talked about it. He asked for a trade. There's almost a 0% chance that he matches his rushing production from last year, especially considering he doesn't want to run the ball. If you look at his rushing stats from last year, 59 carries, 365 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He needed all of that to help boost his numbers up to be the wide receiver 3 in PPR last year. I don't know that you can count on that happening or even close to that happening again. So you won't see me ranking him up where most people are. If you look at his rookie year rushing stats, 14 carries, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns, maybe you get something close to that. His second season, injury plague, played in 7 games. He had 8 carries for 26 yards and no touchdowns. I think we get closer to those numbers, and his production is going to leave a lot of fantasy managers wishing they selected somebody else.
You heard it here first from Rob Green. Trade Deebo Samuel.
He's a sell.
For me, it is Jimmy G. I know there's rumors right now that he's going to the Seahawks, but I'm saying he gets traded to the Bucks. He will. So kind of two hot takes in one, which this probably isn't that big of a hot take. Tom Brady is retiring after this year. Jimmy G and Tom Brady have already shared a QB room, and the Bucks will end up doing what the Patriots or Bill Belichick planned to do 5 or 7 years ago, whatever it was,
Okay.
when Jimmy G was supposed to take over in New England. So Jimmy G is your starting quarterbacks for the Bucks next year.
Ooh.
That would be something.
Yeah. I'm also, Rob, I'm with you. I stand by you on your hot take. I love it.
All right. Maybe we need to bump Debo down in your rankings, bring those consensus rankings down a bit.
Oh, man. We're going to pave the way for Debo just getting traded by everybody.
All right, guys. Well, episode 1 is done. We went through the Ultraflex formats. Again, it is 1 quarterback, 8 flex positions. So that can be running back, receiver, or tight end in any of those positions. And the tight end is 1.5 point premium. And then we have a super flex in there. So most of our teams are going to have 2 quarterbacks. And that's what we'll discuss on the next episode. We'll be looking at our quarterback and tight end rankings. So
don't you try to close this podcast out with me getting my stupid question without me getting my stupid question in. All right.
Fire away.
There's gonna be a stupid question. All right. There's gonna be a stupid question at the end of these.
I've been asking stupid questions this whole time. So fire away.
Your questions have been great. You are a fantastic host, Sir Anthony Sutton. If you could, Rob, I'll start with you. If you could take and domesticate one zoo animal, what are you going with?
Ooh, one zoo animal. I will take the tiger.
The tiger.
It's like a giant cat. Could you imagine a nice, cuddly, furry tiger? Think about that purr.
You're really hoping it's one of the nice ones, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, if it's domesticated, we're gonna say that it's a nice one.
Okay. Tell you what, man. I got a cat, and it's not always nice. So what happens when it decides to like jump on your leg or something? You know?
Yeah. Well, we'll worry about that when it happens.
Okay. Tony.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of something that'll help around the house a little bit. So I'm gonna go with a giraffe. Clean out the gutters. Like if I need to clean the windows, I can just jump on him, clean the windows. If I ever need to just get around the cul-de-sac, he'll be able to assist me getting the mail. So I'm gonna go with the giraffe.
That would be an interesting one, man.
Are
you afraid of heights?
I am afraid of heights, but I'm not. I mean, I'm afraid of like jumping out of a plane, not like 15 feet.
So if you were like holding on for dear life at the top of the giraffe's neck, you'd be okay.
No, see, that'd probably scare me.
Okay.
But if it's domesticated and I'm allowed to just like ride on his back and do that, then I'm fine.
Okay. And my answer would be a gorilla. I'm so glad that neither of you guys took the gorilla. I just think having a big ass gorilla walking around the house would be epic. And I want it to rock me to sleep at night. And I think that there would be nothing more like, I don't know, man. I could just imagine being held in someone's arms like you're a baby, you know, like, and then just rock to sleep. Hopefully it's not breathing and picking shit out of my hair. I don't have any hair. I don't got to worry about that. I don't even know if gorillas do that. That's a monkey thing probably, but I think gorillas are monkeys. So, but yeah, I would love to be manhandled by a gorilla. And don't take that in any sort of weird way, because that could definitely come across in a weird way.
All right. Sounds like I should wrap this up.
Good spot to end.
We had a lot of fun. Episode 1 is officially done. Again, next week we will be talking about quarterbacks and tight ends. We're excited to continue to talk about our Ultraflex strategies and rankings and lineup, again, give us a follow on at ultra_flex FFP. And then we will see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.